Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise for the arrival of His Excellency, the Right Honourable David Johnston, Governor General of Canada. Kính thưa quý bà quý ông, đề nghị toàn thể quý vị đứng dậy chào mừng sự hiện diện của ngài David Johnston, toàn quyền Canada. Xin mời quý vị an tọa. Please be seated. Để bắt đầu chương trình, tôi xin được rất hân hạnh và kính mời ông Trần Khiêu, Chủ tịch Ủy ban Nhân dân tỉnh Trà Vinh, có đôi lời phát biểu.
Thưa Ngài, toàn quyền Canada cùng quý vị đại biểu tham dự hội thảo đào tạo các kỹ năng cho nguồn nhân lực tại đồng bằng sông Cửu Long nói chung và tỉnh Trà Vinh nói riêng. Trà Vinh là tỉnh thuộc đồng bằng sông Cửu Long, là vùng kinh tế có điểm nhấn ấn tượng trong bức tranh kinh tế Việt Nam, là tiền đề quan trọng để thu hút phát triển nguồn nhân lực, thực hiện thành công sự nghiệp công nghiệp hóa, hiện đại hóa. Tuy nhiên, kinh tế xã hội của tỉnh Trà Vinh trong những năm qua phát triển nhưng chưa tương xứng với tiềm năng này. Một trong những nguyên nhân của thực trạng này là công tác đào tạo nguồn nhân lực của tỉnh còn hạn chế, như quy hoạch tổng thể về đào tạo nguồn nhân lực chưa phù hợp với tình hình phát triển kinh tế xã hội của địa phương. Cơ cấu đào tạo ngành nghề mất cân đối, thiếu đồng bộ, đào tạo chưa gắn với sử dụng, tỷ lệ lao động đã qua đào tạo còn chất lượng tay nghề thấp. Giáo dục, nghề nghiệp và đào tạo đại học, cao đẳng từng lúc, từng nơi chưa gắn với nhu cầu của xã hội. Nhận thức được hạn chế trên, lãnh đạo tỉnh Trà Vinh đã xác định nguồn nhân lực chất lượng cao là một trong những động lực quan trọng thúc đẩy sự nghiệp công nghiệp hóa, hiện đại hóa, là yếu tố cơ bản để phát triển xã hội, tăng trưởng kinh tế nhanh, bền vững. Từ đó đặt ra mục tiêu, nhiệm vụ những năm tới trong đào tạo nguồn nhân lực của tỉnh là tạo cơ hội cho 85% người lao động ở các lĩnh vực nông, lâm, ngư nghiệp được học tập, đào tạo, bồi dưỡng ngắn hạn và thường xuyên theo các chương trình giáo dục, thụ hưởng các chương trình bồi dưỡng kỹ năng nghề nghiệp, nâng cao hiểu biết nhằm nâng cao năng suất lao động, chuyển đổi nghề nghiệp, tăng thu nhập, nâng cao chất lượng cuộc sống. Đa dạng hóa, mở rộng quy mô và nâng cao chất lượng các trường dạy nghề trong tỉnh, phấn đấu xây dựng 80% đội ngũ công nhân lành nghề và các chuyên gia ở lĩnh vực công nghiệp, tiểu thủ công nghiệp, dịch vụ để đảm đương nhiệm vụ trước mắt và lâu dài cho sự phát triển của tỉnh trong giai đoạn mới. Thu hút 20 đến 30% học sinh sau trung học cơ sở vào học nghề và các nghề theo nhu cầu cuộc sống. 30% học sinh trung học phổ thông, bổ túc, trung học phổ thông vào học các chương trình đào tạo nghề bậc cao, trung học chuyên nghiệp, cao đẳng, đại học và sau đại học tại tỉnh và ngoài tỉnh. Có trình độ trung cấp, cao đẳng, đại học 17.000 người, có trình độ sau đại học, thạc sĩ, chuyên khoa cấp 1, tiến sĩ, chuyên khoa cấp 2, đạt trên 300 người. Trên 80% cán bộ xã, phường, thị trấn được học tập, bồi dưỡng, cập nhật kiến thức về quản lý, pháp luật, kinh tế, xã hội và đạt trình độ chuẩn hóa nhằm nâng cao khả năng công tác. Trên 90% cán bộ, công chức, viên chức, các ban ngành, đoàn thể tỉnh, huyện thị được đào tạo đại học chuyên ngành, bồi dưỡng nâng cao trình độ chuyên môn, nghiệp vụ, quản lý, lý luận chính trị, tin học, ngoại ngữ. Huy động nhiều nguồn lực trong và ngoài tỉnh, chuẩn hóa và hiện đại hóa trường, sở, trang thiết bị giảng dạy và học tập, ngân sách nhà nước tập trung đào tạo nguồn nhân lực từ nghề đến trình độ cao học, tranh thủ và thực hiện tốt nguồn tài chính của Trung ương, các tổ chức quốc tế đầu tư cho đào tạo nhân lực, tăng cường và tổ chức tốt nguồn tín dụng học tập cho sinh viên các trường tại tỉnh, tạo điều kiện thuận lợi cho học sinh, sinh viên được vay vốn để học tập, không ngừng củng cố và nâng cao chất lượng đào tạo trường Đại học Trà Vinh, cao đẳng y tế, trung cấp, nghề khác, hạn chế dần việc tuyển chọn học sinh phổ thông vào đại học, cao đẳng, tại chức, khuyến khích và tạo điều kiện để phát triển cơ sở dạy nghề, tin học, ngoại ngữ, công lập, các cơ sở giáo dục 100% vốn nước ngoài hoặc liên danh với các đối tác trong nước để tạo nguồn nhân lực tỉnh nhà theo quy định của pháp luật Việt Nam. Với yêu cầu về đào tạo và phát triển nguồn nhân lực của Trà Vinh, hôm nay nhân hội thảo đào tạo các kỹ năng cho nguồn nhân lực tại đồng bằng sông Cửu Long nói chung và Trà Vinh nói riêng, với sự tham dự của Ngài Toàn quyền Canada, lãnh đạo tỉnh Trà Vinh trân trọng ghi nhận và cảm ơn những đóng góp của Canada vào sự phát triển của tỉnh Trà Vinh thông qua việc tích cực hỗ trợ cho tỉnh xây dựng trường cao đẳng cộng đồng, nay được nâng cấp là trường Đại học Trà Vinh. Trong giai đoạn tới, cùng với cả nước, tỉnh Trà Vinh thực hiện công cuộc công nghiệp hóa, hiện đại hóa đất nước để đến năm 2020 đưa Việt Nam trở thành nước công nghiệp hiện đại. Với yêu cầu đó, Trà Vinh mong muốn rằng các nhà đầu tư trong và ngoài nước, trong đó có Canada, sẽ tham gia đầu tư phát triển sản xuất, kinh doanh trên địa bàn của tỉnh, đồng thời phát huy kết quả trên lĩnh vực đào tạo nguồn nhân lực. Canada sẽ tiếp tục nghiên cứu, hợp tác và hỗ trợ Trà Vinh thực hiện thắng lợi mục tiêu, nhiệm vụ, giải pháp đã đề ra, việc đào tạo và nâng cao chất lượng nguồn nhân lực phục vụ cho sự nghiệp công nghiệp hóa, hiện đại hóa của tỉnh Trà Vinh nói riêng và đồng bằng sông Cửu Long nói chung. Trước khi dứt lời, tôi xin gửi đến Ngài Toàn quyền và gia đình cùng toàn thể các thành viên trong đoàn lời chúc sức khỏe, hạnh phúc và thành đạt. Tôi xin tuyên bố khai mạc hội thảo đào tạo các kỹ năng cho nguồn nhân lực tại đồng bằng sông Cửu Long nói chung, tỉnh Trà Vinh nói riêng. Trân trọng kính chào.
Xin trân trọng cảm ơn Ngài Chủ tịch tỉnh. I would now like to invite His Excellency, the Right Honourable, to say a few words. Sau đây, tôi xin kính mời Ngài Toàn quyền có vài lời phát biểu với quý vị. Honourable.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Deputy Party Secretary, Dr. Mee, distinguished guests, dear friends, thank you for this warm welcome to this remarkable place, this place of innovation. First of all, let me express my condolences to those in your country and surrounding countries who've suffered from the floods, and to express my admiration for the courage of the people of Vietnam in dealing with this force of nature in your usual tenacious, imaginative way, coming to the help of others. What we're witnessing this morning is a remarkable story of innovation. Innovation is a very simple concept, but it's difficult to do. Innovation is simply crafting or taking a new idea and applying it to make things better, to do things better. And this great facility and the great range of activities that we see here led by Dr. Mee is truly astonishing. I've learned a little bit about Dr. Mee in the last moments or two of his coming to Canada under very challenging circumstances, arriving in the city of Montreal, a city where I spent 20 years, working in a restaurant, marrying his wife who was a waitress there. He was a cook, and he worked in the restaurant from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 2 o'clock in the morning. He then went home for about 4 or 5 hours sleep, and then he got up and went to classes from 8 o'clock until 1:30 at Concordia University and then 2 other universities, and obtained his PhD degree. It's a remarkable example of aspiration, tenaciousness, hard work to accomplish important goals, and then has come back to his home country so that he could transfer this knowledge and make the lives of the people here better, which he's doing in such innovative and such extraordinary ways. I love to see the co-op students who are explaining the various exhibits and inventions that we saw along the way, bringing very young people at the early stage of their learning into the whole process of discovery and explaining how it's done. I'm a very great believer in co-op education, and it brought back this experience. The conversation about 10 years ago, I was at the University of Waterloo as president. We do much of our education by co-op. Our students do 8 4-month academic terms interspersed with 6 4-month work terms for which they're paid. And we started a new program in nanotechnology engineering. This was 10 or 11 years ago. And the dilemma was that we needed jobs, work terms, for these students during their 4.5 years. And it was difficult to find those jobs because nobody knew what nanotechnology was. We explained it was just doing things very small, but that was a bit of a mystery. I was a director of a company based in Detroit called Masco Corporation that makes building materials. And amongst those, they make paint. So one evening I was at a meeting there and I was explaining the difficulty of finding gainful employment for these nanotechnology students. And the fellow running the paint division put up his hand and said, "I'll take 2 of them every 4 months." I said, "Chuck, that's very good of you, but you don't have an R&D lab. Why do you want our nanotechnology engineering students?" He said, "Because paint is really based on very small particles. And we're now at the nano level. That's 1/1,000,000th of a meter. And as we get into that area, we need this expertise of moving particles around, mixing them in different ways. And I want these bright students to teach us what's going on, and I want a pipeline in your nanotechnology laboratories at your university so I can take advantage of all of that knowledge coming out." Now, I'd love to say this is cause and effect. I'm not entirely certain it is, but I'm Irish enough that I claim it whenever I can. About 4 or 5 years later, one of the product Behr paint, BEHR, which is the largest selling product in Home Depot in the United States, won the Consumer Product of the Year award for a paint that has the primer coat and the finish coat in the one container. You don't have to do 2 sets of painting, you do one. And that was for exterior finishes. And now the next product is to do the same thing for interior finishes. And it all has to do with nanotechnology and using bright young people and bright ideas to produce better product. And that's what we're celebrating here really, is innovation, which is doing things better, creating attractive jobs for young people who have the appropriate kind of training. They in turn building families, building communities, building prosperous and healthy societies, and of course building a greater Vietnam. The skills we develop at work and at school are what drive economies. And when we give our young people the opportunities to learn, we all stand to benefit from the results. Our 2 countries know this and offer possibilities to learn new talents and update those we already have. Whether at school, in the workplace, or in your everyday life, education is always taking place. And that why I was so pleased to learn that the community college that began with Government of Canada funding and Canadian technical support has now evolved into a full-fledged sustainable university. I was also pleased to find out that Trothin University today has active partnerships with a number of Canadian academic institutions such as the Marine Institute of Canada. And you know what happens out of those partnerships? Not only do the students participate in them, gain a great deal, but the 2 institutions gain. 1 + 1 adds up into 3. The success of Trothin University is due not only to its graduates, but also to the dedication of its faculty and staff. And of course, one more aspect of Dr. Mee's leadership is that he's Dean of Chemistry and a key faculty member. Let me end with some reflections on where you stand in the Mekong Delta. You stand in that place in the world where land and sea merge. If you think back over human history, one of the very important transitions was when human beings ceased to be hunter-gatherers and became agrarian peasants. They actually settled down on some land. They began to farm, they built communities, they increased prosperity levels, cities began to grow, and that was a great step forward in terms of the evolution of human beings. We believe that occurred about 7,000 years ago in southern Iraq, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers come together into a delta and then flow into the sea. Well, in the last 25 years or so, we human beings have moved from being hunter-gatherers on the sea to agrarian farmers of the sea. We've learned how to farm the sea, and we've learned how to mine the sea. And here in the Mekong Delta, you actually have a mixture of both of those. You have sea and you have land, and this interaction of the two presents some very interesting opportunities for innovation and development. Your country, Vietnam, is a country that has a lot of coast. My country, Canada, is a country that has a lot of coast and a lot of water. And I look forward to some very interesting developments as we learn to be agrarian farmers of the sea as well as hunters and fishers. Let me end by simply saying how much we prize our relationship with the people of Vietnam, and particularly in institutions of this kind that bring the very best of skills and innovation together to improve the lot of people in both countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, His Excellency. And now I have the honor and privilege to introduce the three excellent panelists. And when I introduce the name and position, and when I introduce you, please stand up and move to the stage. And the first one will sit at the very left from my position, over your right from your position. The first one I would like to introduce Mr. Paul Davidson. He's the president of AUCC. Mr. Davidson. I would like to invite, please, Dr. Nguyễn Thành Mỹ, president of MyLan Group, to the stage. And I would like to invite Dr. Phạm Tiết Khánh, Trà Vinh University rector, on the stage. Please, yeah. You can see that I just reserved the closest to the microphone for myself. That's it. Now I would like to introduce Dr. Paul Davidson for his speech. And please limit yourself, each and every member of the panel, please limit yourself within 5 minutes. And I guarantee you I will be very strict. After 5 minutes, I will, if you don't stop, I will turn off the light. Okay. Please, Mr. President. You'll have to sit there. I think you better move here.
Professor Min, Excellency, distinguished guests, Mr. Mee, I'm so thrilled to be at Trà Vinh. This is my second visit to Trà Vinh, and it's great to be back. I was first here in 2005, and I want to congratulate the business community, the government, the students, and the faculty for the tremendous growth, dynamism, and results that you've achieved since I last visited. I think the work that your community has done in partnership with Canada exemplifies the best in cooperation. It has been a focused commitment over many years. It has been a long-term engagement. Oftentimes, people look for results in 3 years. And I wonder if there had been a review in 3 years, whether there would be the confidence to keep going. But 5 years, 7 years, and 10 years out, we now see tremendous improvement and tremendous results. The relationship is also based on partnership. And I was thinking of a phrase that I use often in life, which is to draw the circle wide. And that's what you've done. You have drawn the college community together with the universities. the government with the local community, and with the private sector. And so throughout the growth and development of Chaving University, you have drawn the circle wide. In a visit to another country, the first things that strike you are the differences. But then after a few days, you see what's in common. And I think one of the things that this community shares with Canadians is that we have a passionate belief that education changes the world, that it transforms individuals, communities, and societies. And whether you are a refugee, whether you are a rural farmer, or whether you are an emerging superpower, the strategy is the same. Invest in education, because education changes the world. I want to speak briefly about the situation in Canada with regard to colleges and universities and the innovation agenda. And I should, at this point, bring greetings from my colleague, Jim Knight, the President of the Association of Canadian Community Colleges, and his Vice President, Paul Brennan. We are collaborators together, and I know he knows this community well, so I bring greetings from him. And I want to underscore that Canada's 95 universities and 150 community colleges work together. We play different roles, but complementary roles. One of the things we share is that we're dynamic institutions, able to respond to local situations and contribute to local economic development. In fact, in the experience of Canadian universities, more than 1/2 of our faculty have been hired in the last 10 years. So while people think of universities as long-standing static institutions, in fact, they're very dynamic and can respond to the needs of the day. Another element in common is that close linkage to communities, to respond to local need, to identify opportunities, and to work forward together in partnership. I was struck, Excellency, in preparing for this visit, that the campus that was created here started with a gift of land from the community. And I know that's true to your own experience as well. Now, another area that we share in common is the desire for good jobs for our young people. And I'm pleased to say that in the Canadian context, despite a world recession, over the last 2 years, university graduates have experienced job growth of more than 300,000 jobs in Canada. And that compares to 400,000 jobs lost for those without post-secondary education. It underscores the point that by investing in education, by investing in training, by working in partnership, we can create good wealth and good prosperity. I want to underscore the important relationship between employers and our institutions in Canada, and the fact that it's a dynamic relationship, that we try to respond to the demands of local communities and engage to respond to those needs in a meaningful way. And His Excellency has been a leader in this for over 27 years in identifying those local needs and being able to respond to them. And I see that same tenacity, that same sense of nimbleness here in Chavin. It's absolutely amazing to come back 6 years later and see the growth of this institution, to see its linkages with private sector employers, certainly your own, but I see also other employers very closely engaged. And I think that speaks to a true partnership and an enduring partnership. I want to say, just drawing on His Excellency's remarks, that one of the early partners with you is an institution that was known as Malaspina Community College, and it is now Vancouver Island University. The Government of Canada recently invested significantly in its shellfish research capacity. And when I see the potential and growth of the shrimp exporting here, I see that there continues to be an opportunity for engagement in that important connection. And so government policy, private sector engagement, engagement of students, engagement of faculty is what will create a prosperous community here in Chaving and in Canada. I thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you.
And now I would like to invite Dr. Nguyễn Thanh Mỹ, President of MyLan Group, to say a few words.
Good morning. It is a great honor to host at MyLan Group His Excellency, the Right Honourable David Johnston, Governor General of Canada, Miss Justice Ambassador of Canada to Vietnam, Mr. Lê Sĩ Vương Hà, the Ambassador of Vietnam to Canada, the Canadian delegates, and the authorities of Tra Vinh Province. When I established MyLan Group in 2004, I wanted to bring Canada, my home for 3 decades, to Vietnam, my country of birth. As an entrepreneur, I wish to not only create innovative products, but to better lives through job creation and philanthropy. MyLan Group and our cooperative education program, or co-op program, resulted from big dreams, hard work, and the support of many who believe in my vision. I hope that our journey will inspire other companies, enterprises to participate in skills training and education to empower the less fortunate. The journey began in 1979 when I fled Vietnam in a small fishing boat, just 800 meters from this building. I was among the lucky ones who end up 14,000 kilometers away in Montreal. Like many immigrants, I began my new life washing dishes for minimum wage. Despite the hardships, I was fortunate to be in Canada, where social mobility was based on merit and not on my father's political ties. I was determined, even with limited English and French, to take advantage of Canada's world-class education to be a better provider for the young family I was starting. For 7 years, I worked until 2 o'clock in the morning while completing the bachelor, master, and PhD degrees. I became known as Red Eye Mai because American with blue eyes, I'm American with red eyes. By the way, me is American. Because of how little I slept, the education at Concordia University and INRS prepared me well to start my career at 2 the world's most renowned technologically advanced companies, IBM and Kodak Polychrome Graphics. A world-class education combined with skills training at leading companies allow me to excel as an employee and make the leap to entrepreneur in 1997 when I found American Diceworks in Bay Fair. The company's success enabled me to return to Vietnam in 2004 to fulfill my dream of building a high technology company in Tra Vinh. I chose my home province, one of the most rural and poor in the country, because of the potential to positively change a culture and spur the social economic development. After founding MyLan Group, the greatest challenge remained how to overcome Vietnam's lack of human capital. Many graduates from Vietnam's colleges and universities cannot transition from school to work because they lack the fundamental knowledge and skills required for employability or successful entrepreneurship. This is due to education that emphasizes on memorization instead of understanding, submission to authority instead of critical and analytical thinking, and a theory without hands-on practice. Also, Vietnamese culture, meaning the accepted social practice, values, goals, and attitude, has created a tolerance for the corruption and complacency. The ill-prepared workforce and bureaucracy in Vietnam can lead otherwise strong business to failures and eliminate many socio-economic benefits. Refuse to accept the status quo. I decided that a private enterprise, MyLan Group, would lead improvement in skills training and education in Vietnam. skills training infrastructure with private sector support is more effective than a purely public system because enterprise keen understanding of market needs and ability to respond quickly to changing demands. The private sector's role should be to set high standards for human resource and to facilitate the practical skills remain training and education. To set expectations for our staff, MyLan Group applied Canadian business standards to operate a transparent and socially responsible company that value and rewards employees based on merit. Our high standards have also made us a model which enterprises, Vietnamese enterprises and companies aspire and a place where locals dream to work. To construct a framework for practical education and training, I joined with the Trà-Vinh University, which were funded and built by Canadian International Development Agency, or CIDA, to form an applied chemistry department in 2007. As Dean of the department, I wrote a curriculum based on education that I was fortunate to receive in Canada. Teaching hard and soft skills and providing hand-on training, the program has now has 150 students with the first class proudly to set for graduation this December. MyLan Group and TVU further collaborated to found a cooperative education program or co-op program, a paid internship that imparts practical skills and cultivates the behaviors and attitudes of that enhance the employability, such as decision making, discipline, innovation, thinking, acceptance of responsibility, teamwork, and motivation, which are overlooked in the traditional Vietnamese education. The co-op students additionally gain self-confidence as a sense of accomplishment by paying their way through school. Half of the applied chemistry department students have enrolled in the co-op program. Of the former co-op students, 92% became full-time employees at MyLan Groups and TVU. One ambitious student will pursue a master program abroad. With the success of our co-op program, we are seeking new partnerships with the other departments and universities. MyLan Group and TVU's fruitful collaboration demonstrates the effectiveness of private sector support of demand-driven skills training. However, our mission will not be sustainable if we continue alone. Wide-scale participation of private enterprises and skill training is crucial to job growth and foreign investment in Vietnam. Unfortunately, other companies in the Mekong region has yet to get involved because inexperience or inability to understand the financial burdens of setting up training infrastructure. Our co-op program was set up using MyLan Group's own capital and the experience I gained in Canada. However, many Vietnamese companies lack this financial capacity and knowledge. Assistance from the public sector and knowledgeable parties can encourage private sector involvement in skills training and education. Tax incentives and public funding can induce private investment in training projects like the co-op program. Knowledgeable parties such as companies with successful training programs and foreign academics can also form a committee to provide guidance to enterprises wishing to support skills training. Local colleges and universities can also do their part by actively seeking skills training opportunities with enterprise partners for their students. As a Vietnamese Canadian, I am proud of and thankful for the Canadian government and people's dedication to helping developing countries even as far away as Vietnam. With Canada's contribution to Vietnam and private sector support of skills training, we can create opportunities to change lives and to change a nation. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, I would like to invite Dr. Phạm Thị Khánh, Rector of Trà Vinh University. Dr. Khánh, please.
His Excellency, the Right Honourable David L. Johnston, Governor General of Canada, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and students, it's tonight to reflect for me to welcome you on to Trà Vinh Province and to share with you the program and experience of Trà Vinh University over the past decade. Allow me to reflect of the progress of Trà Vinh University in the past 10 years. Trà Vinh University originally started as Trà Vinh Community College in 2001 on the framework of Vietnam Community College project funded by Canadian International Development Agency. We have remarkable contribution by increase of GDP growth and to reduction of poverty and the employment rate in the province by successfully adapting the Canadian Community College model to Vietnam context. Trà Vinh Community College was ranked as the best Vietnam Community College by Ministry of Education and Training. Trà Vinh Community College model was considered as the typical model in Vietnam. This led to increasing of the number of community colleges throughout Vietnam. Accordingly, Vietnam Association of Community Colleges was established in September 2006. In June 2006, Trà Vinh Community College was developed to Trà Vinh University. TVU followed the Canadian Community Private University College model. We are also the member of Association Community College of Canada. With the dramatic change in Vietnam economic structure resulting from renewal, Vietnamese education system has carried out a central reform of education. One such reform is allowed for community participation in higher education. Trà Vinh University may be considered a pioneer in making this happen by closely coordinating with MyLan Group to lead the cooperative training program specialized with application of RT polymer and nanomaterial in 2007. This success was affirmed by Deputy Prime Minister Professor Dr. Nguyễn Thị Nhân and Deputy Ministry of Education and Training Professor Dr. Bùi Văn Ga during their visit to Trà Vinh University and MyLan Group. As the leader of the university, I highly value the contribution Dr. Nguyễn Thanh Mỹ and MyLan Group into the success of cooperate with education model in Trà Vinh, especially in creating an active and confident generation of students with theoretical thinking skill, problem-solving skill, practical workplace skill, interpersonal communication skill, among others. With the very first remarkable achievement from the co-op program with MyLan Group, Trà Vinh University is confident to confirm that we are heading in the right direction. Cooperative education promises to be the best average model which allows Vietnamese education university and institutions to provide students with comprehensive skills to enter into the practical working environment in the 21st century. In my opinion, effort to improve the efficiency of skill training in Vietnam in the future should be focused on involving the participation of the employers and industry into the education process through developing such cooperative program in Vietnam universities. To carry out this, Trà Vinh University is going to conduct a variety a necessary activity including introducing the co-op model to employer, parent, and high school pupil through seminar, brochure, newspaper, documentary film, conduction survey to know what career field needs labor research, how many and which business, industry, and agency accepts co-op student developing co-op guidelines that are flexible to different programs, renewing and adjusting the structure and content of the programs, delivering the co-op program, evaluating the effectiveness of the program, and extending the co-op model to members of Vietnam Association, community college, as well as other universities in Vietnam. We also hope to be a co-op circle with participation of co-op alumni and private business. There is a long way to go on with a huge investment on human resource and funding. Therefore, we really need support from related organizations in outside of the country. We look forward to continued support from the Canadian government with the process funding to designing and developing co-op program in Travin University. We hope that in the very near future, Travin University could be proud to become the Vietnam-Canada Francis University, and a brief London symbol of the fruitful collaboration and long-lasting friendship between the countries of Vietnam and Canada. In closing, I want to wish all of you here to a pleasant day. On behalf of Travin University, I would like to extend our best wishes to the delegation from Canadian and Vietnamese governments. Wish you all of effective and enjoyable business trip. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, the three panelists, for keeping time. Excellent time. And now I were asked to give a kind of summary of that 15-minute remarks from three panelists, and I try to keep my remark within 20 minutes. No, don't worry. After 50 minutes, you see Dr. Mee talk, focus much more on the demands from the economics of Vietnam and also from the society of Vietnam. And then Dr. Khanh talk about the supply side. So how the supply and demand match in Vietnam. And they actually, I think you already witnessed by yourself that it could be used, that kind of linkage, and can be used as a model of Vietnam. And that happened thanks for the support from Canada, and that actually mentioned by Dr. Paul Davidson. And that happened by a partnership, a very strong, very good partnership, and we received a lot of experience shared by our partner and our friends in Canada. And Dr. Khanh also mentioned something like that partnership and some of the program in Travin University can be used as a model to expand it to Vietnam. And but he's never mentioned anything like his role as a president of I think the Vietnam Community College Society in Vietnam association, and that association now have 49 members, and it's growing very fast. My last point is after the visit of the Deputy Prime Minister, at that time he's also the Minister of Education, Dr. Nguyễn Thiện Nhân, to Travin University and then to MyLan groups, he announced a national program to promote the linkage between industry and university. I don't think it's just coincidence. Thank you. And now it's the question and answer Q&A section. Could you please, if you like, we have a microphone, we'll circulate around, and please raise your hand, identify yourself just by name and title, that's it. And then to whom from the panelists you like to ask question. Not to me, I'm not panelist, I'm just moderator. Okay, thank you. Oh, we have the first question here. Microphone, please.
Thank you. My name is Kunal Gupta. I'm really excited to be here. I'm with the Canadian delegation. I graduated from school 3 years ago, went through co-op, which a lot of you are going through right now. I have two questions. First for Mr. Davidson. So today we got a tour of the facilities. We met a lot of the students. What do you think, from a Canadian perspective, we can learn from what's happening here? I know you spoke a lot about our successes in Canada and some of the models that we've had success with. But what do you think we can learn from what we saw this morning? And then to Dr. Mai, congratulations on the success you've achieved, and I commend you for engaging so many young people in a very applied way. I benefited by going through that myself in Canada. What are some of your challenges? So as you look to the future of growing your student program and continuing to engage young people, what are some of the challenges you see in growing your student program?
Thank you, Kunal. In terms of what can be learned, I think one of the things we've learned already on this mission is the importance of education, of investing in skills training, and the tenacity with which this community has pursued this objective. This didn't just happen. This took a great number of participants working over many setbacks. And you were asked a few days ago a question about when you return to Canada, what are some of the culture shock elements? One of the culture shock elements that faces me is the complacency of many Canadians that think that we can just get along, keep on in the trajectory that we're pursuing. I think we need to recommit as Canadians to the value of education, the importance, the tenacity of pursuing higher education, and to improve the linkages with the emerging economies such as Vietnam. I guess the other point I think that bears learning goes back to some remarks that I made earlier, that true effective development is amongst the highest risk activity that you could ever pursue, and governments are often risk averse. True effective development does take time, and in a world of results-based frameworks that expect results within 3 years, we may need to readjust our timelines and recognize that these accomplishments take time to develop. And so those are some of the things that I think we can learn when we go back to, or take back when we go back to Canada.
Thank you very much for the questions. And let's say we talk about a co-op program here. It took us a lot of time and patience, and also support from the authorities of Travin. I think Travin is one of the most open-minded province, because authorities here, they are always open and try to support for education and training, skill trainings. Especially Mr. Kim, he's a former governor here. The successful of the co-op program, or the collaboration between universities and let's say MyLan Group need two things: finance and knowledge. Finance, we have also funding from Canada, from CEDA program. Also, we have the support from the governments of Vietnam and also the provincial authorities. But we don't have knowledge, we don't have experience, we don't have people who know skill trainings here. We don't have professional educators here in Travin. So for the past 4 years, we have been relied on volunteer from Canada, and also from the Canada-Vietnam Education Network that I was founder. To have the volunteers come here to Travin and to teach students, and so to help them to understand the responsibility, the discipline, teamwork, soft skills as well, communication skills. So we need, for the future, we need support from knowledge, experience. We need to have a program that we can pay the professional educators from Canada to come here. I know that I was fortunate to go to Concordia for my bachelor and my master, and Concordia and Waterloo. The two universities have the most successful co-op program. I was fortunate to be in that one of the university there. I learned from that and I tried to duplicate it here, and it's hard, but with the support from the authorities of Driving and also University of Driving and also the CEDA, we are accomplished what you can see up to today. A lot of work we need to do, and we need Canada to help us more. As a Vietnamese Canadian, so I'm willing to be a bridge to bring knowledge from Canada to Vietnam and try to execute it in a transparent ways of doing things. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have, we have the question at the back.
Kính thưa quý vị đại biểu, con tên là Thùy Dương, con là sinh viên năm 3 của khoa hóa học ứng dụng tại trường Đại học Trà Vinh. Đến với buổi tọa đàm ngày hôm nay, con có một câu hỏi dành cho các quý vị diễn giả là mô hình đào tạo co-op của Canada thì làm thế nào để có thể áp dụng được trong điều kiện Việt Nam để mang lại kết quả tốt nhất? Dạ, con xin hết.
Okay, that question addressed to all the panelists. Who willing to take the question first?
Well, just do it from your heart. That's the best you have to do. When I was young here, and I came from a very poor family, and always look up and try to be better. And I came back here with the Canadian mind, Canadian knowledge, and from my heart, Vietnamese heart here. So I try to work together with university and work the authorities here to get them going. So what we have to do, try not only the university or authorities here or MyLan group, but also you as a student. You have to be the driver to make the co-op program to be better, because you are the first one who graduated from the co-op program, and I'm proud that you completed your school last October, and I hope that with the experience and the education that you get from co-op program, and all of you with the authorities here, with the CEDA program and with University TVU, we can make the co-op program better. Thank you.
Urban Community College in last 10 years, we got a lucky thing that we got a process from Canadian government to help to build a community college model, and we study your experience very much. We study especially with make the program based on community and industry. That's big one, and we build the program something like that. And after that, we focus with we related with Dr. Mỹ. Dr. Mỹ, when he come to Durban to build a company in Vietnam, we make the co-op program and study his experience in Canada, and after that we build a co-op program. In education system for last time, we only take the program from the central and delete for the students to study, not attention for community and community. So what if why reason our students cannot find job after graduate? So we study excellent variant from Canadian how to be in the program to focus the industry and community. That is why reason we make a success of the program co-op.
Finzu, thank you for the question. A couple of observations. When I was last here in 2005, this building did not exist. This enterprise was not here. And so in a very short time, some remarkable things have happened. But we need more people like Mr. Me. And they won't all come from Canada. They need to come from right here in Chavin. We need to find the entrepreneurs in this community who can see the power of co-op, can see the power of engagement with higher education to answer their immediate needs for skilled labor and the long-term needs that Vietnam has. So I'm hopeful that by putting a spotlight on today, that will encourage some others to step forward. The other point I would make is that we certainly hope that all the co-op students get employed, but I hope that some will start their own businesses as well, and that they will create wealth and they will see the value of creating linkages back to Chavin Community College. Because to conclude, as Mr. Me has said, we count on the students. The students are the driving force. And in Vietnam, with half the population under the age of 30, it's the young people that are going to do this. Don't wait for others to take you there.
Thank you very much. We have another question at the back here. Please.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tiêu Thanh Thủy, the Director of Teaching and Learning Center of Chavin University. I have a question for the whole meeting. And as you have just heard from Dr. Mỹ and Dr. Khánh about the co-op program, we can say that this is the best model for the skill training. And if we make the comparison between the program, the normal program, the university normal program and the co-op program, we can see the big difference here. In the university normal program, there is a big gap between the knowledge in the classroom and the workplace experience. And the co-op program is something very wonderful to filling the gap here. And so Chavin University decided to go forward with more co-op programs in the future. But it's not easy at all for us to do the big dream like this. As you know, in Vietnam, the co-op program is something new. Very few enterprises, very few business know about co-op. And to do the co-op program, the enterprises is the very important factors, the key factor here, and they have to know about the co-op, and also they should have the big heart, like Dr. Mi's heart. Yeah, and so Chavin University has a long way to go. The first thing we think we should do is to increase the awareness and the willingness of the enterprises and the community to take part, to involve into the skill training process. And Chavin University is a new university and a small university, so our own funding is very limited to do such big things like this. And so we have just had the proposal, the project proposal with the enhanced skill training with industry cooperation. And we have a big hope that we still need get the support from the government, the Canadian government, to foster and to carry out all the necessary activities that can help us to get the dream come true. And besides the support of the Canadian government, I'm wondering if the Association of Universities and Colleges of Canada can give a hand in helping us to do more things with the co-op programs here at Travin University. Yeah, so this is my concern, and also the big heart and big hope from Travin University. Thank you.
Anybody would like to react on that, or to have the comments on that comment? Mr. Davidson.
I appreciate the question. For the first part of your comments, I thought, oh, thank goodness the direction is being pointed at the Government of Canada. And then you turned it around and pointed it at me. And so I thank you for the question. Canada's universities are really supportive of the efforts that are underway here at Chavin, with Vancouver Island University, with the Marine Institute, and others. And I think those that have experienced Chavin will know the power and the success that you're having. I think there are opportunities for further collaboration. I'm quite impressed, frankly, with the technology that's present right here and what can be done in real time with technology to improve access to information and knowledge and have students working together on problems in real time together. In terms of other ways of supporting other organizations with Canada, the World University Service of Canada, early in the history of Chavin, was supporting with the provision of volunteers. And I understand that even just in the last few months, there was a group of Canadian students that came to participate here in Chavin. That's a program that's actually been running every year in different countries since 1948. And it's that kind of collaboration, that kind of long-term collaboration that I think leads to the successful relationship between Canada and countries. But let me be very specific that when I return to Canada, I will be briefing the 95 university presidents across the country about the very impressive results here, and to encourage them to consider ways that they can be more closely involved in the work that takes place here.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, my comment here is, my own comment here is, that's always difficult whenever you are the first guy, and that kind of education, to be very frank, is very, very first model to Vietnam. And I'll just mention, you know, that the policy to promote industry and university linkage, it just issued by Ministry of Education something like 2 or 3 years ago. So a lot of concepts is still brand new in Vietnam. It's very simple. The country just opened door not more than, you know, about just 20 years ago. So a lot of concepts still need to develop and need to expand itself. So until a certain time, we can get what we call a critical mass. The concept still, you know, need a lot of support. But at least now we have a policy from Ministry of Education focus on that. Question, please. Oh, 2 hands at the same time. Okay. Age in Vietnam, age count, the older one, please, and then the younger one.
Kính thưa toàn thể đại biểu, tôi tên là Quỳnh Phúc Dương, hiện là sinh viên năm 3 của trường đại học Trà Vinh. Tôi có câu hỏi muốn gửi đến diễn đàn như sau. Hiện tại chương trình co-op ở trường đại học Trà Vinh đã thành công. Vậy làm cách nào để nhân rộng chương trình này cho các trường khác ở Việt Nam? Tôi xin cảm ơn.
I think we need recognize the co-op program by the government of Vietnam first, and so the Minister of Education and Training, because co-op programs seem to be new here, and most of the time what I learned is that usually university they just like to not involve much with university until recently, when the new Minister of Education now, I think he's the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Nguyễn Thiện Nhân. So as awareness that the co-op program it's a better program than the traditional education in university, Vietnam University. So it's a beginning. The beginning to be recognized that the university and industry have to work together to educate a future generation that be able to help this country to be better. MyLan Group and co-op students here, we try to be ambassadors for a co-op program for the whole country. They'll have to do that. In the next few months, I will give lecture to different universities here in Vietnam and try to promote the co-op program. Another thing that Paul mentioned that about the entrepreneurship. Actually, we try to set up we call VChat store that will help students, rather students from Trà Vinh University or our co-op students to get into business by we call joint venture franchising. That we set up the store that help the interest, the people who interested in to become entrepreneur like me, to start the business, and MyLan Group try to support finance, technology, management training to help them to own at the beginning to own, let's say, 20% of the store, and then by 3 years later they will own 80% of the store, getting them into to business. And then just a few days ago I got the video conference with the VACC in Canada that they asked us to participate in a program that they try to promote here in Vietnam. And when students graduate from university and they get jobs, they can be rich, they can be successful. The model, the co-op program will be recognized by the governments, by everybody here in Vietnam, even the parents, students, we will be successful.
Our co-op program between the University and MyLan Group were recognized by government, especially with Professor Dr. Nguyễn Thị Nhân and Ministry of Education and Training, the Professor Dr. Bùi Văn Ga. That is co-op program between Department of Applied Chemistry and Dr. Mỹ. He also in charge for Dean of Department of Applied Chemistry. That's why reason we make success. But the second phase, I think we make it tension for other program in Trà Vinh University to make a success of Trà Vinh University to co-op with the company, especially with co-op with MyLan for other program. Example, electronic and mechanical. And we just signed MOU between MyLan Group and Trà Vinh University to make a new co-op program in mechanical and electronic with MyLan Group. I think make attention for many programs to get a big success and recognized by government that the first step to make a success, and after that we can deliver for other university or other company. With the company, I think director of company very important. With the host, look like Dr. Mỹ, he have big heart with his homeland in Vietnam and Trà Vinh province. So that's why reason we make a success. Thank you.
If I may add, I would say First of all, if you would like advice about entrepreneurism, Kunal Gupta from our delegation would be a very important person to speak to. 3 years post his degree at Waterloo, he is a very successful entrepreneur in Canada. And while he was a student, he created an entrepreneurship group, the fastest growing across Canadian campuses. So there's a resource in the room today, and seize him. I'm going to come back to the role of employers, if I can, to say that it's often, it's a tradition even in Canada to find other people who should step forward. But in fact, the business community has some really shining examples in Canada of people who have stepped forward. And I'm thinking right now of Mike Asher, who is the president of Irving Oil, who holds 5 university degrees, all from one institution. And I'm afraid it's not Waterloo, Excellency. But having said that, when he took his position of leadership at Irving Oil, he recognized an urgent need to have Masters of Business Administration graduates. He's working in a rather remote part of Canada, and so rather than sending the students away, he worked with his local university in New Brunswick and is now fully paying for 153 students to pursue their MBA on company time in the offices of Irving Oil in New Brunswick. So it does take leadership from the private sector to drive this forward. I think the other contribution I would suggest is the work of our esteemed moderator, who I met 5 years ago when he had a different role. And he had a vision for community colleges, along with my colleague Panellist, for community colleges in Vietnam. And so to use a Canadian context for I think of these gentlemen as the Bill Davis of Vietnam, who had a vision for community colleges and have pursued it, have created some policy space to do it, and finally, and I think this would be true for His Excellency and for others that have started co-op programs in Canada, the results are the students. The results are the knowledge transfer and the innovative skills that leave the university on 2 feet and start businesses and become outstanding employees.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davison. Actually, you're touching my heart. I would like to ask something, and also for your question. Actually, at the moment, together with the Canadian Embassy, with the CIDA Canada, we already come up with a project, a proposal. The project proposal aims to try to address most of the issue we raised in this forum. But one of the very important objectives is trying to multiply the successful story of Travin to the whole system. And I also like to have a small comment that we keep on talking, and of course, very good that we have Dr. Me. We keep on talking about his big heart. But in Vietnam, we also need to have a very big lunch to shout out to the policymaker about that, to make the Travin more visible to the public and to the policymaker. Next question, please. The younger one, please.
Dạ, xin chào toàn thể diễn đàn. Tôi tên là Trần Văn Sinh, là sinh viên năm thứ 4 của trường đại học Trà Vinh. Thì diễn đàn đang đã nói tới là cái chương trình này cần sự hợp tác giữa doanh nghiệp và trường đại học. Như vậy thì sự hợp tác đó có gặp phải những cái khó khăn gì? Và cái mô hình ở bên Canada đã giải quyết vấn đề đó như thế nào? Và khi áp dụng vào Việt Nam thì mình nên giải quyết vấn đề đó như thế nào? Anh xin cảm ơn.
Thank you. And if I understand well through the translation, it's the question of the role of and relationship between business and the university. With regard to co-op programs, there's a very clear understanding between the employer and the university about the responsibilities of each for the students and for the employer. To make sure that the students get a meaningful experience, it's important that they have an opportunity to make a difference and make a contribution to the enterprise and not simply do work that other paid staff could do. So that's one aspect of the responsibility. taking your question to a larger scale, it is a matter of public debate about the relationship between the private sector and the university sector. I'm actually quite proud that Canadian businesses invest over close to $1 billion Canadian dollars to conduct research on Canadian campuses. And that's because they choose to work with the very bright students and the very bright faculty to find solutions to contemporary issues. I think it's important that universities preserve the space to pursue pure research and to pursue their academic interests independent of business involvement. But going back to my remarks, I would say that what's most effective is when the university and the community are involved in a dynamic two-way process of identifying problems and identifying solutions, and in the end, both improve.
Difficult between the co-op program in Vietnam, I think that the link between the industry and university not clear, the politics not clear. Now in Vietnam, especially with the politics for the industry invest for and all related with university. December plus start before invest. When they invest for university for the equipment or training or something like that, and the second that we not make the politics by ministerial education, especially with the related between university and industry and university. That we get some discuss. So by this one you see with the newspaper and television when they talk with they talk with us about only 3% related between industry and university in Vietnam.
I would like to add something very small. From my observation, and I think if you would agree with me, if you looked at the title of more than 200 university rector in Vietnam, more than 90% of them having the title of professor, doctor. That could be the hurdle of the model. So next time, if you be in the board, being representative of student to elect the rector of university, don't vote for anybody who with the title professor, doctor. Any more questions, please? We still have another question from the front.
I'd like to just make a comment on entrepreneurship. So we've talked today a lot about how do we get more young people, more students in co-op programs, how do we get co-op programs across Vietnam. But a bigger question we should also be thinking is, how do we create more Dr. Mys? And as the next MyLan group sitting in this room. What we've experienced in Canada, and I went to the University of Waterloo, is I was involved in starting up an entrepreneurship organization where we encouraged students while they're still in school, in class, or during co-op terms, to get an entrepreneurial education outside of the classroom. And what that meant was talking to entrepreneurs, talking to people like Dr. My on a regular basis, hearing their stories, hearing their challenges, hearing their successes. And that provides not only the motivation for us as young people, but also the inspiration that we can do it too. Quickly on my story, I went to Waterloo, I studied engineering, which is a very, very technical program. We talked about the benefit of co-op developing the soft skills and the problem solving and critical thinking skills. That was key for me. And then while in my 4th year at Waterloo, I started a company, a software company, and that was 3 years ago. And today, we're 42 people. We have customers all over the world. But what's really unique, I went through Waterloo, went through the co-op program. Today, I'm employing co-ops at my company. And co-ops represent about 10 to 15% of our team. So we have Dr. Mai here as an example on the larger scale of what can be achieved. And you could take my story as a smaller scale example of what can be achieved with an entrepreneurial culture and a motivation to do things differently.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any question? Yeah, in the front row, please. Microphone.
Thank you very much. Dr. Mee, I am Perrin Beattie. I'm president of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. First of all, thank you so much for your hospitality. What you've done here, by any standard, is extraordinary. During my time here, I've been trying to get a better understanding of the economy of Vietnam, the role that the private sector can play, particularly the Canadian private sector, and the issue of skills obviously keeps on coming up. And I'd like to pick your brain, if I can, in terms of some advice that you might give me and members of the business community from Canada. We're seeing some jobs locating now in Vietnam. It's going to be very important for a region like this that people are able to move up from subsistence standard of living, move up the value chain, that you have industrialization, higher value jobs based on skills. And we're seeing some jobs bypassing China, coming to Vietnam, but based on low wages, not on skills. Those jobs are important in the short term, but they're not sustainable in the longer term, because there's always somebody willing to work for less money as wages start to rise here. You had a very strong motivation in coming to this part of Vietnam, which was because it was your home, and for philanthropic reasons you wanted to come, in addition to the commercial ones. The vast majority of the Canadian business community doesn't have the same emotional attachment to this region that you do, and their motivation in coming would be commercial. The challenge that I can see that they would find is the lack of availability of current skills. The co-op program is very valuable because it trains people and brings them up to the level of skills that industry is going to need. But it's meant a major front-end investment by you to be able to do that. If you were talking to members of the Canadian business community, what advice would you give to them about why they should be looking at this region of Vietnam and why they should be making the front-end investment in developing skills as opposed to going to regions where skills are already readily available and locating there?
Well, sometimes I don't know why I come to drive-in. But I tell you a story. When I was dating my wife in 1983, so I was a cook and my wife was a waitress, and she came in and she said, hey, what's your dream in the future? I said, I'll come back to my town and build industry and schools and hospitals and housing for my people. And she thought that I joked with her, you know, I was a cook, so before I went to university. And then I came in 2003, and I looked tried to invest in Vietnam, and I looked for different places in Ho Chi Minh City, a high-tech industrial park, Cần Thơ industrial park there, and also traveling. And then my wife came in, and she came here with my youngest son, Christopher, and she met the former governor here, Mr. Vang, and Mr. Vang now is he's vice governor here. They said, convince her to tell your husband to come to travel and, you know, go back home. And so my wife went back to the hotel and called me to Canada. I said, look, when you go to Vietnam do investment, you go with your heart, not your brain. You know, so I listened to my wife and I come back to travel, and I make a very right decision. I come back to travel, and so meaningful for me. And also because I'm a local boy, so I have the support all by authorities here, and you know they help me in every means to make the investment here successfully. A lot of friends of mine also were successful in Canada and asked me, why you come to travel, you should go to Ho Chi Minh City, you should go to Da Nang, you have better skilled people there, and starting business in Canada is more difficult than in Vietnam. Because I came to Canada, I don't speak English very well. I speak French, English, and Vietnamese. All of them are broken. So in Canada, everybody know more than me. They have more money than me, more knowledge than me, more connection than me. But I started and I got it done okay. And so coming back to Vietnam, they need everything. They don't have good equipments. They don't have nothing. I mean, in Canada, every day I wake up, I see one thing I can make money. And I come back to Vietnam, every day I wake up, I see 10 things I can make money. So starting business here in Taiwan is I follow my guts and my heart. And so sometimes I don't know. I'm just doing it. And every day I wake up, I see more than 300 young employees. They look at me, they go, "Uncle, I want to do more things. I want to have a better life." Remind me of my youth here. And they give me, I think, life to be young again. And that's why I keep doing it. I don't know. I mean, even my wife said, it's enough, it's enough. So my wife went back to Canada, I started another thing. So I don't know how to answer this question. It's just follow your guts, and like Steve Jobs said, stay hungry, stay foolish, and I learned from that, and I keep doing, and hopefully things will turn out okay at what he said, and things turn out okay here now. Thank you.
Okay. I'm really afraid that we will be very last question. Okay, because our time. I know for sure that there's still a lot of interest around to discuss more, but unfortunately, our time already finished. Actually, again, I'll ask to have give you a kind of summary of the discussion, but I think I have only one sentence for my summary. That from Dr. Mee, you have to always listen to your wife. The wife's always right. I think, and I think now a very big hand to Mrs. Mee, who gave very wise advice. And big hand to the panelists, please. And now I would like to invite His Excellency, the Right Honourable David Johnston, for his closing remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This has been an extraordinary last hour and a half with all sorts of rabbits running through my head. We've talked a lot about cooperative education, but the essence of that really is collaboration. The reason cooperative education comes about is because businesses or government employers have a certain set of needs and look to have those needs fulfilled. And institutions like colleges and universities also have certain needs and certain desires. And from those two forces, one develops programs such as we've just been describing. My university, the University of Waterloo, began co-op education in 1957, and it was a very, very sad start. The university, it began as a faculty of engineering being spun off from another university. It was made an orphan because that university wasn't prepared to allow it to flourish with the financial system in place. It then sought an affiliation with another university, and that university said co-op education is really not university level, we don't want you. It then found that the program was probably not going to be recognized by the licensing body, the College of Professional Engineers. So it started out in a very difficult way, but because the idea was so powerful of marrying theory and practice, and because there were enough employers that wanted a student who was well-rounded in this way, it gradually became more and more respectable and is quite successful today. I'm one of those, I guess I'm not a professor doctor because I don't have a doctorate, but I'm I'm the most traditionally educated person you can imagine, but I wouldn't start a university or college today without co-op. I think it's such a wonderful basis for lifelong learning when you're combining theory and practice always, and that you don't wait until you finish the end of your formal schooling to begin the practice. I say the most practical thing in the world is a good general theory, especially if you're constantly putting that theory to practice and adjusting it accordingly. The Cornell stories are very important. The University of Waterloo attracts people like Cornell who are very entrepreneurial, and they have a desire to start companies, start businesses, and employ others even before they leave. Perhaps the most famous example is Mike Lazaridis, who started BlackBerry RIM in 1984 as a fourth-year electrical and computer co-op student. And he, in fact, never finished his degree because the company was sufficiently successful in his first 4-month term that he had to continue with it. His company, Research in Motion, employs an awful lot of co-op students, about 10% of their employment force, which would now be in the order of 13 or 14,000 people, are co-op students. And they've learned to use these students in 4-month intervals to do very valuable things for the company. You know the largest source of student talent for Microsoft, the great company of Bill Gates? It's the University of Waterloo. It's a company, or a Canadian university that supplies those students because they know how to use the skills of these people so much. Mike would, if he were asked the question, why would you have a company making handheld devices in a small town in southern Ontario called Waterloo? He said, it's very simple. You build the refinery next to the mine. And it's that relationship that I'm really trying to stress in terms of what brings co-op to the fore. It's the mutual need of a couple of institutions. I'll just end with one story. I was the Vice Chancellor, President of McGill University for 15 years. And I got a call one morning from a man who was running what is now Bombardier aircraft. I think you would know Bombardier airplanes, Bombardier trains, you've probably seen. And he said, I have a problem. He said, we need about 150 aeronautical engineers each year. We're trying to import them from Europe, and we find it's very difficult, very expensive. And of every 3 we import, only 1 is with us 2 or 3 years later. They're moving on. We need more aeronautical engineers. Why isn't your university graduating? And I said, well, we don't because we had a government program called the Avro Aero about 15 years ago that was producing very sophisticated jet planes. And because procurement contracts from government require a certain amount of manufacturing in your own country, and Canada is a very, very small market for jet planes, those contracts dried up. It was difficult for us to sell them to the United States because it was Canadian manufacturer that offset procurement, etc. So the Avro Aero, which was a wonderful plane, disappeared. So we no longer teach much aeronautical engineering. To make a long story short, what he did is he said we have 5 aeronautical employers in Montreal, which is now one of the great aviation centers of the world, 3rd largest manufacturer of aircraft in the world. It's in Canada, largely centered there. And we will employ engineers right out of college, like Mike Asher at Irving, which Paul spoke about for a moment. And they will take a part-time Master's of Engineering degree. So they'll be paid, they'll be studying while they're students. Secondly, if you've got 2 aeronautical engineers, the University of Montreal probably has 3. Concordia University, Dr. Mee, probably has 2 or 3. Laval University has 1 or 2, Sherbrooke 1 or 2, and that's what happened. We put together a program with 5 different universities supplying this talent. And out of that came an applied Masters of Engineering program, which now supplies the aeronautical talent, which ensures that Montreal will be one of the flourishing capitals in producing aircraft over the next few years, including CAE, which I think is training pilots here in Vietnam. It's certainly training all of the pilots in Malaysia at the present time. Now, what's that all about? Well, that's co-op at a different level. That's co-op at the level of a master's degree. And what drives it is a very important need of industry. We'll get a collaborative group of partners together, and with very inventive people like Dr. Mee, they make it work. But for these things to happen, it takes great people working for very good ideas, and we celebrate one of those people today, Dr. Mee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, His Excellency. And now the panelists, thank you very much. You can go back to your previous seats. Now I would like to invite the Ambassador of Canada and Vietnam, Mrs. Deborah Justice, to the podium, please. And now the forum is yours.
Thank you very much. And I would like to invite His Excellency and Dr. Mee back onto the podium, please. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Dr. Mee, who will be the recipient of a visit medallion by His Excellency, the Governor General. As you've heard, Dr. Mee is a Canadian-Vietnamese scientist and businessman. And in our view, the MyLan Group epitomizes the benefits that cooperation, international trade, and investment can bring to local communities in developing countries. You've heard from Dr. Mee's personal story that he studied in Canada, had his family in Canada, a career, and a very comfortable lifestyle, but chose to come back to his home province to give back to the community. He has set up this company, or these companies, developed links with Chaving University and helped to strengthen that university, and is a respected educator and businessman in this province, and I would say in the country. Dr. Mee is committed to improving the quality of higher education and to ensuring relevant employment in high-quality facilities for Chaving University graduates. Your Excellency, Dr. Mee. Oh, Mrs. Mee?
Wow, it was an honor and surprise. I would like to thank Your Excellency, the Right Honourable David Johnston, the ambassadors, and all the guests. It's out of my imagination, so I cannot say anything. Let's just say thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise for the departure of His Excellency, the Right Honourable David Johnston, Governor General of Canada. Kính thưa quý bà quý ông, đề nghị toàn thể quý vị đứng dậy chào tạm biệt Ngài David Johnston. Và bây giờ mời toàn thể Quý vị chúng tôi đến dự nhanh chóng, mời toàn thể quý vị nhanh chóng đến dự tiệc. Xin mời quý vị nhanh chóng chưa.